All right, folks. Brian here, official Loft Sports Podcast on the Loft Sports Podcasting Network. The official Loft Sports Podcast can be found wherever you consume your podcasts. Check out our website at www.loftsportus.com. Follow us on X, YouTube, and TikTok. Tonight, I've got our guy Tommy back on the pod. Tom, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. It's a nice weekend. We got some Olympic hockey on right now. The NBA is starting to kick up a little bit. College basketball. So football's ended, but there's still plenty to watch.
Yeah, I mean, right. So tonight specifically, really not too much right now. I saw Canada was blowing out. Who was it? Switzerland, I think they were
Yeah,
playing. And
3-1, 3-1.
oh, it was 3-1. Okay.
Yeah, but Canada's kind of dominating this thing.
Yeah, and then
As
of course, yesterday too, the U.S. with a big win over Latvia, 5-1. Tom, if I showed you a blank map, could you like point out where Latvia is?
The only reason I probably can is because of soccer. Because I watch I
So there
watch
you
a lot
go.
of European football, so I might be able to. Latvia might be one of the tougher ones, but I could point out a decent amount of European countries.
Yeah, Olympics is going on. NBA All Star Weekend is this weekend, which personally I don't really care about. I don't think I've really watched All Star Weekend in years since they've changed up all the events. And of course, we got spring training yet to begin. That's starting up. This week actually, it's starting up. So what we decided to do, Tom and I, was because we're 2 weeks away from the scouting combine. We're gonna mock the entire first round of the draft tonight. Tommy's gonna mock the odd picks. I'm going to mock the even picks. And for the folks who are viewing this pod visually, either on our website or on YouTube, I have a mock draft simulator up right here, so you'll actually be able to see the picks happen in real time. All right, let's jump into it. Tom, you're doing the odd picks. First up is the Vegas Raiders, and is it really as easy as quarterback here?
This is always like a funny thing to debate, right? Like, ideally, it's like what if you add Mendoza this year, Mendoza is going to be my pick. It's going to be the pick in the draft. It is always a question of, is it the best thing for them right now? I know the old thing is always, well, are you going to draft? The hope is that you're not going to draft that high again 2-3 years from now. So you got to take the quarterback now. But we've seen so many of these young quarterbacks get thrown in these situations where, Cam Ward last year, who I thought played pretty well, all things considered, but got beat up a lot, doesn't have a lot of options, doesn't have the best line, and now you're playing catch up because you need to know if by year 5 the quarterback you drafted is good enough. I'm going to take Mendoza here because they do need a quarterback, and I think when you look at their offense, there's some pieces that you can be excited about. Like Genti had an all right year for a rookie. I think Brock Bowers is really good. They still need some help at wide receiver and offensive line, and that defense as a whole needs a lot of pieces. But again, I don't think you can pass the quarterback up here. It's just always interesting when we do these things, when you do mocks, when you read it, yeah, he's going to go 1, but is that the best pick for the Raiders?
Mhm. And we do know that the Raiders' offensive line was one of the worst offensive lines in football last year. Geno Smith was under constant pressure, got beaten up a lot during the season last year. Maybe I mean, we talk about value with draft position, right? I mean, they took Ashton Genty as high as they did. Maybe they should have took a pick like Armin Membu or something along those lines
Yeah.
to protect the quarterback. Of course, we
Again,
could always look back and say, this is what they should have did, but it's gonna be an interesting spot for Mendoza stepping in behind that offensive line. But like you said, there are some pretty good weapons there with Genty handing the ball off to him and Bowers receiving, one of the best tight ends in the league.
and sometimes it's like need versus, and we'll talk about that a lot, I'm sure, on this, and as we talk about the draft and building teams and all that stuff, like need versus best player available. I'll be honest with everybody here. I've watched a handful of players so far. I haven't watched Mendoza yet. My hope is to get to Mendoza and Simpson and probably Garrett Nussmeier, sometime this weekend or over the next week, really start looking at quarterbacks and seeing what I think of them. but I don't think Mendoza's going to be my top player in this draft. So then it comes down to like a team like the Raiders. Like, how much talent do we actually think is on that football team, right? Like you just mentioned, they took Genti. Could they have taken somebody else last year? If they had Genti as the best player on their board at that time, which there's a very real chance they probably did, then they're drafting for best player available. They're just looking to add talent. This team needs to add talent. Now, Mendoza is very talented. He's a great quarterback. He had that run this year in Indiana. He can make a lot of throws. The question will be like, where would he have gone last year with all those quarterbacks last year or even 2 years ago? But this year he's the top quarterback, and he's shown, he won a national title this year. He won the Heisman. He made some big time throws in multiple games this year, including the playoff and the regular season. So I'm not trying to knock Mendoza. It's just, need versus your best player available. And in this case, I'm sure the Raiders go, well, we need a quarterback, and he's going to be one of the best players available.
All right, moving on from the Raiders, we'll go to pick number 2. Speaking of teams that need talent, my New York Jets. As you can see visually, I got my Jets hat on. I got my Jets shirt on. I'm ready to roll, baby. It's ready to roll for the draft here. A little mock session here. So the Jets at 2. So the first thing, if I'm the Jets, what I'm doing is I'm looking to trade down. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of teams looking to come up here. I don't know if anyone's really going to, want to give up much to get either a Reuben Bain or a David Bailey or even an Arvell Reese. If you may have heard about the Jets last year, they didn't pick off one pass in the league. They didn't have an interception at all season. They just continue to set new trends for losing football. So with that being said, folks, if you watched any of the Jets last year, you saw that the defensive side of the ball basically resembled an expansion team's last year at the end of the season. So due to the fact in this spot right now, right, we're not trading down, we're staying at 2. There's no quarterback worth taking right now at number 2. Maybe we see if Ty Simpson falls. Maybe we look into him later. The Jets do also pick at 16 in the first round. They also have 2 higher picks in the second round where they could look for quarterbacks there. But what this team really needs is they need someone on the defensive side of the ball that can affect plays. And when I say affect plays on a play-by-play basis, I mean someone who's constantly in the game. They don't need a guy. So, for instance, I'm going to throw out Arvell Reese there. He's an off-ball linebacker. He did line up on the edge a lot this season. I think he had about 6 sacks in the league this year. I don't know. I'm just not a fan in this spot at number 2, drafting a guy who's kind of like a tweener kind of role, an off-ball linebacker / pass rusher. I mean, I don't, to be honest, I really don't have much faith in the Jets' defensive side of the ball right here. Aaron Glenn coaching him to turn him into a legitimate every down pass rusher. So with that being said, my pick right here is going to come down to David Bailey versus Reuben Bain. And I'm going to go with Reuben Bain here. And I'm going with Bain because I like the way that he really elevated his game during that Miami playoff run last year. He's not just a pass rusher. He's very good against the run. He can play inside. He can play outside. I think he's a tone setter. I think he's a guy who really could be one of those. I tell you, the Jets really need a kick-ass guy on the defense. And look, I'm not worrying about the T-Rex arms. I know people are worried about his length and all that. I think he's a guy who you can insert on that defensive line, and he'll make guys like Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald better, and they can develop into one of the best pass rushing teams in the AFC. I'm going to go with Reuben Bain with this pick right here.
That's interesting. Interesting the way you went about it. I think you're spot on with Reese. I think Arvell Reese is going to be, and I have Reese ahead of Bain personally, and David Bailey. The big question with Reese is going to be, can he be an every down edge?
Right, exactly.
There's
that's kind of how I was foreseeing it too. I know, David Bailey, he's a guy who, he's not great against the run. He's a little undersized too. And really what I'm looking for in this position is just somebody who's an every down player that can, make an impact on that defensive line, be just a big nasty guy inside, whether it's inside or on the edge. Because the Jets just need talent. Honestly, you could go Bain, Reese, or Bailey in this position, and I'll be honest, I'd probably be cool with it anyway. They just need some talent, this team.
when I watch Bain play, Bain is explosive. Like that's what Ruben Bain is. You watch him fly off the edge. He's very powerful. He stood out in the playoff, especially that first round game. Had a really, really good season for Miami. I think the difference with him and Reese is, I think with Arvell Reese, and we'll get to him whenever he's drafted, I think you can line him up a little bit all over the football field. I think if you're looking for a more traditional edge, yeah, Bain probably makes the most sense. You know, of these guys, Reese, Bain, Bailey, he's the biggest. You know, I'm curious to see what he weighs in at, but he's probably going to weigh in at like 270, 275. Yeah, he's a little undersized, but he shows more than enough power to make up for that. I do have my concerns with him against the run, but you're not getting Ruben Bain to be a really good run stopper. You'll find ways to help him play against the run. You're getting Ruben Bain to get sacks, and Will McDonald had a really good season for the Jets last year. I know you're probably hoping that Jermaine Johnson can come back and kind of be what the flashes that he showed. So if you can do that and you can add Bain, I think the Jets, at least up front, immediately get better, at least at getting to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Arizona
is next. When you look at Arizona, they're a very interesting football team, right? I actually think they have some decent pieces, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They were banged up a lot last year. Quarterback's the question mark. What are they going to do with Kyler Murray? It looks like they're going to try and move on from him. I imagine they try to run it back with Jacoby Brissett. This may be another spot where they look to trade out. But when you look at the makeup of this football team, you know, Trey McBride, James Conner, I know he's coming off of an injury. Trey Benson, who they were excited about before he got hurt. Marvin Harrison Jr., who was a top pick for them. Michael Williams had over 1,000 yards. I believe they signed Josh Sweat last year, and he had I think he had 10 or 11 sacks this year. He was a double-digit sack guy. So there are pieces there. Their issue is that this division is really, really difficult. They don't have a quarterback. I'm not going to go quarterback here. When I look at them, I think it's quarterback, probably tackle, guard, maybe a running back. I mean, when you look at Francis, I'm going to butcher his name, but Magawa from Miami.
I believe it's Mauioa. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Listen, when you listen to this podcast, I'm horrendous with pronunciations.
So the only reason I know that is because his brother is actually on the Jets.
Oh, there you go.
He's a scrub linebacker. Yeah.
I think this kid's the best tackle in the draft. I think he comes in there and he shores up an offensive line that was okay. There were some decent pieces on that offensive line. But he can come in. I think he can start on day one. Played right tackle at Miami. We're going to talk about that when it comes to both kind of the top two tackles in this draft. They were right tackle guys. Can they translate to the left? I think he can translate to the left. He's a big body. He's 6'6", 335. He moves really well. He gets to the spot well. When he gets his hands on guys, he usually wins. I'm going to take him here for Arizona. And then if it's a year of Jacoby Brissett, who, believe it or not, did not play that poorly. I know they're picking where they're picking, but he didn't play that poorly for the Cardinals when he was in there this year. I think they'll take another year of Jacoby Brissett. They'll get a guy that they hope can be either their right or left tackle. And then, you know, if quarterback's a need next year, they can try and figure that out next year.
Yeah, I saw some rumors online that Arizona might look to actually trade Brissett, which didn't really make sense to me at all. All the smoke seems to be consuming Kyler Murray if there was a trade to be made. Apparently from also some stuff that I had, and look, when I say I hear things, I'm just based on what reporters are saying online and stuff like that. Apparently at the Senior Bowl, Kyler Murray's name was not the most popular when it was brought up in some circles of conversations.
And I'm sure we'll touch on this when we get to Miami. Those are two guys that the contracts are just, or Tua, you know, in Miami, and Kyler Murray in Arizona. Those contracts are killers. Like,
yeah,
you got to take on a lot of money. And, you know, Kyler Murray was all right. You know, he has his faults as a quarterback. So to hear that is very interesting. I think if you're Arizona, the thought process in Brissett is he's cheaper, he's experienced, and he played well enough this year that now if we're talking, can you fetch a day 2 pick for him? You know, I think that would be very intriguing to them. And then maybe they just say, you know what, Kyler, new coach, new system. We got you a left tackle now. We feel the pieces are there on offense. You're under contract. Let's see if we can make it work one more year. And if it doesn't, then we'll move on. But that is interesting that you mentioned that.
Yep. All right, we got Tennessee now at number 4. My old buddy Robert Saleh gets another head coaching job very quickly after just putting together one of the worst coaching performances in recent league history with the Jets. So Saleh comes in here. He's bringing Brian Daboll along as his offensive coordinator, and the plan is to hopefully with Daboll, they're looking to turn Cam Ward. Work with him to progress towards maybe trying to become like the next Josh Allen, I guess, in their eyes. But when I look at Tennessee from a draft position, right away, I'm thinking, well, I got a young quarterback in Cam Ward. There's not much at receiver with Tennessee. They have Calvin Ridley, who's still there. They've the other guy, Cameron Deke, I think his name is. He's there. He's more of like a special teams guy, though. So right away, I would think, looking to pair Calvin Ridley with a potential number 1 receiver, Carnell Tate. We got him on the board here. We've got Jordan Tyson on the board here. I've also strongly considered, though, Arvell Reese here. Saleh, plays a very specific type of defense. He's always one of the things that he really likes as a player. I'm not saying Arvell Reese could be a player that's similar to Fred Warner, but Saleh likes to build his defense around linebackers who can run sideline to sideline, up a lot of speed guys, able to cover, sideline to sideline, all parts of the field. So with that being said, I think at this point, if I'm Tennessee, if I'm Saleh, look, I got my quarterback of the offense. I'm looking to get my quarterback of the defense here, and I'm going to go with Arvell Reese from Ohio State here. He can play off ball, and maybe on occasion on third downs we'll line him up on the edge. But I think in this spot, Tennessee would go with best player available on their board, and they're going to go Arvell Reese.
Yeah, this would be really interesting. They have Cedric Gray, who's a second-year linebacker from UNC, who plays off the ball. So I actually like this because I think this would help Arvell Reese. I think when you look at Arvell Reese, what for me, what I want to see, what team I want to see him go to, is a team that's going to utilize everything he does. Ohio State had kind of like 3 what I call jack of all trade guys. It was him, it was Caleb Downs, and it was Sonny Styles. Those were 3 guys that you could line up all over the defense and you could do numerous things with. I think Arvell Reese is best when he's getting after the quarterback. My concern is when if he does that consistently, like say Micah Parsons, who I think he's going to be compared a lot to, although I think he's a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, maybe not as quick, but very similar in the ways that they both play, is that if you're just going to line him up on the edge, he's going to get worn down. He holds up well against the run. He's powerful, but it's just a lot to ask a guy that isn't the biggest guy. So if he can go somewhere with a guy like Robert Saleh, who's a defensive-minded coach, and now maybe Robert Saleh is going to do with him what Ohio State did with him, which is line him up all over the defense, line him up over guards and centers, line him up off the ball a little bit. I think that would be best for him. So yeah, when you look at Tennessee, they have Justin Simons and they have Sweat and they have Cedric Gray, 3 guys you might be like, well, do they need Arvell Reese? I think if you take Arvell Reese and you put him in this team, he's better because of all those other pieces. And yeah, they need wide receiver help. This is a deep wide receiver class. This would be a really, I think, good spot for Arvell Reese to land.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Got the New York Giants at 5.
All right, the good old our friends here in the tri-state area, the New York Giants. They're the talk of the town, right? They have a new coach, they have a good young quarterback, they have a running back they love. It looks like things are headed in that direction. They do need some help, the Giants, for as good as they were last year, and I think they finished the year well, and they definitely have pieces with the quarterback that you like. I look at their line and I still think they need some help there. I know wide receiver is kind of the talk. Neighbors is coming off of an injury. How can they help their quarterback as much as possible? They need some secondary help as well. I think the board falls really, really well to them here. I could see them going in a number of directions. Actually, when I was mocking earlier today, I took Sonny Styles here. Now, the board broke a little bit differently, but my thought process is if I were the Giants, I would just take the best player available or the guy that I think defensively, which is where I think they need more help, can help me right away. And I look at their safeties, and I think their safeties are a little bit better than they might have gotten credit for, so I wouldn't take Downs. But I also had Tate going earlier than in my mock than I have him going right now. So I think if Cardinal Tate is here, the New York Giants are going to take him. And I think Cleveland Brown fans are going to be really upset about that. But I just think when you look at Tate, I think he's a little bit different of a wide receiver than Malik Neighbors. Neighbors is super athletic, freaky athletic, can get down the field, can make those unbelievable catches. Cardinal Tate has that, but Cardinal Tate's kind of going to be your safe option. He's going to be the guy that can run those 10, 15-yard routes, get open. He has a great feel in zone. He has unbelievable hands. He can high point a ball really, really well. I just think the Giants will look at this and go, if it's him or Fanu, we're going to take one of those two. And if Tate goes 4, then we'll take Fanu 5. But in this case, Cardinal Tate's there. I think he helps Jackson Dart. I'm curious to see what the Giants do in the offseason too. I guess we should preface this by saying, when we do a mock draft after free agency, it's going to look a lot different. There are going to be teams that fill some of these holes with free agent pickups, versus drafting. Like the Giants, maybe they sign a tackle and then they don't need Fanu. But I think if the board breaks out like this, I think they'll go Cardinal Tate, and that's who I'm going to take here.
Cardinal Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State. I tell you, that ends up happening. Yeah, Tate and Neighbors together, man. That's a pretty young, nasty receiver combination that they have for Jackson Dart right there.
And I think those two complement each other really, really well as wide receivers.
The Giants go Carnell Tate. Got the Cleveland Browns here at 6. So the Cleveland Browns, right, hired Todd Monken as head coach this year. He's coming into a situation where, right, again, when we think of Cleveland here at 6, quarterback could potentially be in play. I think, though, the Browns in this sense, though, are going to roll with some combination. Right, they're going to have Deshaun Watson coming back this year from the injury. You have Shedeur Sanders, who, personally, look, I know he was a rookie this past year, but I saw a lot of Shedeur play a lot of games with him last year, and Shedeur did not look good at all. So I'm definitely not the one who's driving the Shedeur Sanders train here, but I think what Cleveland will look to do is I think they'll either roll with Deshaun Watson or they'll have some kind of competition between Watson and Sanders in camp here. With that being said, though, we know how good the Browns' defense is. Myles Garrett, reigning Defensive Player of the Year. They also had the Defensive Rookie of the Year in Carson Schwarzenegger, who had a fantastic season. He was a second-round pick in the draft last year. What Cleveland really needs is some offensive help. A lot of guys on their offensive line are entering free agency this season. Joel Petonio, I believe he might end up even retiring. Jack Conklin's a free agent. Wyatt Teller's a free agent. They got a lot of guys that are free agents that are going to hit free agency here. So if you're looking at from an offensive perspective here, that offensive line really needs a rebuild here. Now, Francis Mauigoa, he already went earlier in the draft. You could go wide receiver here. We have Jordan Tyson on the board. A little later, we'll get into Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion. A little early for those guys here. But I do see Spencer Fano here, the offensive tackle from Utah. And, right, if I'm going to roll with Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders, I got to try to build the offense. I got to try to build some kind of protection unit around them. And since I don't have a lot of offensive linemen under contract going into next year, and it was getting a little older, their offensive line, and they struggled a little bit this past year. It's time to rebuild the offensive line, and that's why I'm going to go with Spencer Fano here from Utah at pick number 6. And then Cleveland does have another first-round pick later in the draft. I think they are at 16. No, 16's the Jets. They're a little 24. So maybe later in the draft, the Browns will be able to find a wide receiver to help out the quarterback of this offense.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. You hit the nail on the head. I think both their starting guards and left tackle are free agents. Mm-hmm. Quarterback is this team's biggest need. Shedeur was serviceable last year, but I don't know if he'll be much more than that. Andrew Berry, when you look at their 2025 draft class, it's, to me, maybe the best draft class from last year. Absolutely crushed it between his first-round pick, his second-round pick, his third-round pick, his fourth-round pick. I think all of them are contributing and, like, major contributors. So they're going to look to continue to build through the draft. I think Fanu's a great pick here. I could see them going Jordan Tyson. I think if Cardinal Tate is available here, they go Cardinal Tate, but he's not. I think Fanu's a good pick. He's a solid tackle, played really, really well at Utah. Thought he struggled a little bit with speed guys, but he's really good against the run, really, really good against the run. And this is a team that ran the ball a lot last year, and they're probably going to run the ball a lot again this year with their quarterback situation. So I think that's a good pick there. So next up, 7, the Washington Commanders. This is another team. You look at some of their needs. They need a little bit of interior help on the offensive line. Probably need some more playmakers. They have some big time guys who are available via free agency. They need an edge. They need a linebacker, defensive back help. This is a team that was banged up big time last year, and a lot of this team is going to come down to their quarterback. And if they can keep him healthy, right? I think if Fanu is here, if either of the tackles are here, I think there's a chance they take one of these tackles. The guard from Penn State is going to be an interesting guy. He will go at some point in this first round. I don't think he's going to go here. This could be a team that looks to trade out of this position. But we're not doing trades here. But I could see them looking to trade back and then maybe taking somebody a little bit later if they can get some more capital. This team needs help on the edge. They have Dorrance Armstrong, who's a free agent. I look at David Bailey right now, and I like he's my top edge guy, although I guess Reese is, but Bailey is my top natural edge guy. And I think he'll fit what Dan Quinn wants to do. So I'm going to go David Bailey here. I know people are worried about his size. He's a little bit smaller. He's really, really powerful. He holds up really well against double teams. He's quick off the edge. He's powerful getting into guys. He had a really good year on a really good Texas Tech defensive front. And I think if they can just add him here, add a little bit more pass rush help, I think he comes in and he can contribute as a rookie in that first year.
Yeah, I think that pick makes a lot of sense. You're taking basically the best player on the best. Well, I don't want to say the best. Texas Tech wasn't the best defense in the country. Ohio State was, but Texas Tech taking the best player on that defense. And we saw how good David Bailey was in that playoff game against Oregon. He was doing everything he could in his power to try to wreck that game, and he did keep Texas Tech in that game for a little while.
Their defense might not have been the best, but their front may have been the best front in football. I mean, they were really, really good across the board, and he was the best of them.
Mm-hmm. And we'll see as we get later into this draft. Maybe a guy like Lee Hunter, maybe he'll be around the end of the first round here. He might even end up going later as well.
Yep.
Let's get to the New Orleans Saints here. So New Orleans Saints, Kellen Moore entering his second year. I feel like the Saints in this spot at 8 could go in a lot of different ways. It seems like I think what they're going to do this season is it feels like Tyler Shuck is going to get a real chance to show that he could potentially be their franchise quarterback. He looked pretty good down the stretch last year, and the Saints were able to put some wins together. And the Saints were expected going into this past year to be like the first pick in the draft, and they were able to string together a couple of wins, especially late in the year. They put together a little winning streak of their own. In this case, so the Saints have to decide what they want to do here, right? Do they want to try to build around Tyler Shuck, add another weapon for him, or do they want to try to shore up that defense that's aging a little bit? You've got who's the defensive end? Cam Jordan, who's getting up there in age. You could look to maybe like if a guy like David Bailey was on the board here, I may have went with David Bailey here for the Saints. You have Caleb Downs, who's still up here, who in my opinion is the best player in the draft. It's pretty crazy to me. We haven't taken him yet. He's here at 8.
Keep that quiet.
There you go, right? So Caleb Downs here at 8. Dude, I think Caleb Downs here might be too good to pass up at 8 for the Saints. I'm gonna go Caleb Downs here at 8 for the Saints. I think he's just too good to pass up in this situation. And the Saints, like I said earlier, the Saints could use some help on the defense, especially on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, this is my top player in the draft. I think this kid is really, really special. I'm praying every day that he makes it to Dallas at 12. The things you can do with this kid kind of feel limitless. Like, you can line him up in the box. When you watch Ohio State play, there are plays where he lines up in the box. He's then a single high safety. He's then down, coming in, blitzing, 2 high safety. I think he can add the ability to cover slot guys, maybe not the super shifty slot guys, but he can cover tight ends and he can cover running backs. He breaks on the ball with so much speed. He's so much fun to watch. He's going to be a guy he isn't Kyle Hamilton. He's a little smaller than him, but you can do a lot of different things with him, very similar to what Baltimore does with Kyle Hamilton. And he's going to be a kid that when he goes 8, 9, 10, maybe 12 to Dallas, fingers crossed, that 5 years from now we look back and go, it's insane that a kid of his talent dropped this far just because of positional value.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, I mean, I he'd be the best player on the board. And if the Saints do that, yeah, it makes sense. And to your point on Shuck, yeah, I think they're going to roll with him. I think they won 5 or 6 of their last however many games this season, and they were playing pretty good football. So yeah, I think he's going to be the guy there. I could see him going wide receiver here. You mentioned Cam Jordan, Demario Davis. Some of those older guys are free agents. Do they come back? Do they retire? They could have to replace them. But in this case, with the way things are looking now, I think Downs makes sense. So the next team, we have Kansas City coming up here. The Chiefs are going to be interesting because they have some free agent guys they need to retain. I think if one of those tackles are there, that's who they take. Their right tackle, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Was it Jawan? What was it?
The kid from what was he? A Florida guy, right?
Yeah, whoever their right tackle was, I don't have it in front of me. He really struggled this year. But I think now we're getting to, unless you like Lomo that much, and I haven't fully watched him yet. I don't know if I like him that much. I don't know if I'd take him at 9. The big question with the Chiefs are, do they add a skill guy to help right now? Are they a team that maybe look to trade? And again, talking about free agency, George Pickens is a name that's come up with Kansas City. I don't think they would trade 9, but if they gave up their second for Pickens, that might change where they are. When you look at this team's needs, you look at running back, you look at wide receiver, they can use interior or tackle help. Again, I think the tackle's on the board or the guard on the board, it's a little rich right now. They could use defensive line help. I don't love anybody there. So again, another pick that I think is maybe the best value right now is Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. It may not be the most pressing need they need, but this kid is, and I know you'll talk about it, you're a Notre Dame fan, this kid is phenomenal. You watch Kenneth Walker and you watch what Kenneth Walker does. Jeremiah Love can do that, and I think he can do it a little bit better. You can't arm tackle this kid. He breaks any arm tackle his way. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. They didn't ask him to do a ton of it, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. This kid feels like the complete package when it comes to a running back. He isn't Bijan or Saquon in his style of play, but I think he has that impact on a football game, and that's why you already took him. I think the Chiefs take him at 9 here if the draft breaks this way, and the impact that he and Patrick Mahomes and maybe Travis Kelce, if he comes back, he's a free agent, can have would be scary next year.
Tell you, I've been watching Notre Dame football probably about 25 years or something. I would say he's definitely the best running back I've ever seen play at Notre Dame. He's probably in the top 2 in skill players I ever saw play at Notre Dame, because I'm one of those guys who thought Michael Floyd, the former wide receiver, was going to be like the next Randy Moss coming out, but of course he had his own personal issues that didn't work out for him. But yeah, Jeremiah Love, just a phenomenal player, phenomenal athlete. The only thing the thing with Jeremiah Love, he's just got to stop hurdling guys all the time. That's my biggest issue with him. I don't need to see him take on some injury. But yeah, in this spot, if you're the Chiefs, if you draft Jeremiah Love, even if you paired him with like an Isaiah Pacheco, that's a nasty running back combination right there. And definitely will bring. He not only can he run, he can catch as well. He's great coming out of the backfield. I tell you, even in this draft, Jeremiah Love, you've also got Jadarian Price from Notre Dame, who I think could also be a really solid running back, who we might end up seeing in like the 2nd or 3rd round. But yeah, Jeremiah Love, phenomenal player. And I tell you, if he falls to the Chiefs here, get ready. Everybody's going to be like, oh my God, Jeremiah Love went to the Chiefs. Like, when's it ever going to end with the Chiefs bringing in real good skill position guys? So, yeah, I really like this pick for the Chiefs. And I agree. I think Jeremiah Love would be the pick if the draft fell this way. Let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals now. So, Cincinnati, right? Another year under Zach Taylor being the head coach for Cincinnati, who I personally thought this may have been it for him. But he'll get another year coaching the Bengals. And he's probably rolling into this year, I think, very much on the hot seat. So of course, right, the big deal with the Bengals, I feel like it's been talked about for so many years now, how poor the defense was. It was so poor this past year again. Of course, offensively, you've got Burrow, you've got the 2 receivers and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They could look to add to the offensive line potentially here, but with the defense being as bad as it is, we also don't really know what the future really is for Trey Hendrickson right now. Last year, he I think he signed like a 1-year contract extension with them technically just to get more money for
Yeah,
this past season. But going into this upcoming year, we don't know where that's going to end up. What it's going to be like for him. He might end up getting traded. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So if I'm the Bengals in this position right here, I don't need Jordan Tyson, who's actually the best player on the board here, according to PFSN. So we're going to look for a defensive player here, and I know exactly who I'm going to go with. I'm going to look at Sonny Styles here, a
you
guy who,
killing
right, he
me.
can play off the ball as a linebacker here. Really good guy to have in the middle of your defense. I know last year, I know Logan Wilson was in the middle of their defense last year, and he was just, I don't know what
Trade.
happened after his first year. He was just a complete mess playing in the middle there. So I'm going to go with Sonny Styles here, linebacker out of Ohio State, who can line up. He's a former safety too, so he can line up. He could even play deep coverage. He can line up on the line. You can move him basically all over the place.
You can't let me have nice things. He's a name. He's a name that I'm hoping makes it to Dallas. This kid is really really good. I don't think people realize how good he is. I think when I'm going through my stuff on the big board I do personally right now, I have Sonny Styles as the second best player in this draft.
Hmm.
He can cover. It feels like anybody. He can cover running backs. He can cover tight ends. That's easy for him. Like that. That's not. He's a former safety. It comes natural. He flies to the football. He had a really, really good college football playoff. And he's a guy who, we'll see where he goes. I think there's a world I mentioned earlier. I think there's a world where this kid goes in the top 5, 6, maybe 7, just because of his value and everything he can bring. He can blitz. He's not the best blitzer, but he can blitz. He can cover. He finds the football. He's got good size, good speed, good athleticism. Again, we see all 3 of those kind of studs from Ohio State going in the top 10. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but there's a world where it happens. So, I could totally see this pick for the Bengals here.
Mm-hmm.
So next up is Miami. They're very, very interesting football team, right? When you look at their needs, probably quarterback, wide receiver, guard, corner. They're probably going to trade Tyreek Hill. I don't know what they're going to do with Tua. That contract is just absolute anchor to any roster in football. Chop Robinson, their rookie, had a pretty solid year, all things considered. Bradley Chubb, what they do with him, we'll see. Also had a pretty solid year. They still have some playmakers on offense in A-Chain and Waddle. And Aaron Brewster, their center, was one of the best in football. And, they had some solid pieces in the secondary. So I guess right now when I look at this board and I look at the way this board comes down, I look at Jordan Tyson, I look at Malachi Lemon, I look at Mansour Delane, and I look at Gerard McCoy. Those would probably be the 4 that I'm looking to pick. I think there is a world where Aoni, did I say that name right? I'm going to need your help, the Penn State guard.
Oh, yeah, he's. Don't even ask me for that one, man.
Yeah, well, but by draft day, everybody will have pronunciations down, I promise.
Yeah.
But he's one that I think we could potentially see go around here, right? When you think of last year where Tyler Booker went, he went in this area for the Cowboys. And yeah, guard still doesn't have a ton of value, but if you can get a good guard who can plug in and play right away, that helps your football team. With that said, I am going to go wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Malachi Lemon. I'm going Malachi Lemon over Jordan Tyson because I think Malachi Lemon is more of a top-level physical trait type guy. He's the type of guy who you can kind of just put the ball where it needs to go, and he makes plays. When you watch USC play, he goes up and he gets the football. There are times that the ball is just thrown and they're saying, hey, Malachi, go, or Lemon, go make a play. And he does that. I think that kind of fits what Miami wants to do. I think that's going to complement Jalen Waddle, who's more of a deep threat, better than what I think Jordan Tyson could be for this football team. I think Lemon can be kind of your underneath guy. Let's get him going, slants, drags, and let's have Waddle run deep with Darren Waller kind of filling the in-between. I like Lemon a lot. I like Tyson too. I think these are 2 good wide receivers. I just think Lemon's probably a little bit better of a fit here.
Agreed too. And actually, Makai Lemon was a guy I'm hoping the Jets would be able to get at 16 possibly. I don't see him being there for the record. But yeah, I like that pick there for Miami, Makai Lemon. I agree. I think Tyreek Hill will be traded. We'll see where he ends up, and like Jordan Tyson too. A lot of injury concerns over the past couple of years. I think he's had some knee injuries, so I think Makai Lemon, just from a health standpoint here, I think that is a pretty safe pick if you're deciding between him and Jordan Tyson. So let's get to your Dallas Cowboys here. Of course, right here's a spot we're looking for. I think a defensive player, Tom. Of course, right. I mean, the big question about George Pickens looming. Will they look to trade him? What's going to end up with him in this spot, though? Look, we're doing this on what is today, February 13th. George Pickens is still on the team. The Cowboys just hired Christian Parker, brand new defensive coordinator who came over from the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the defensive backs coach, right? So he was very involved in helping develop Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell. So I'm leaning corner here, Tom. You got your choice here of the top corners in the draft. None of them have gone yet. Right? So we've got Mansour Delane from LSU. Got Jermod McCoy, who he had the ACL injury. So right at this time, we're not sure what his medicals are going to be. So that's a little up in the air coming off of the ACL. We even have Brandon Cisse, who I don't know. Well, this is PFN. I don't know where they rank up here. So right now, in terms of the corner, I'm looking at Mansour Delane, the corner from LSU. I'm going to give you boys Mansour Delane.
Yeah, if the board breaks out like this would be my pick. I think Monsieur Delane is a really, really good cornerback. He's physical. He's really good in man coverage. He's smooth. He breaks on the ball really well. Let's just be honest. This Cowboy defense needs help anywhere. So anybody they take in any of these situations, I would be pretty happy with it. The McCoy ACL thing concerns me a little bit. His junior year tape is really, really impressive, though. But I think when we look at least to me in this draft, I have Delane as the better of the two. I think he comes in for Dallas day one. I think he starts with Deron Bland. Maybe you can now explore moving Deron Bland into the slot, depending on how Siobhan Revel does, their third-round pick from last year, who also was coming off an ACL injury. It also scares me a little bit with McCoy. I don't love the idea of both my corners coming off of, or two of my last, 3 picks at corner coming off of torn ACL. Yeah, I think if you added Delane and you have Revel and you have Bland along with Christian Parker and you sum that up great, he's a former cornerbacks coach. Everybody raves about him. Coached with Denver, coached with Philly. I think I'd be really, really excited if the board shook out this way. All right, so next are the Los Angeles Rams at 13. So the Rams, some of their needs, they need a quarterback, they need a tackle, and they could use a corner. Their secondary was good, not great. I think corner might be the pick here. And again, I think when we look at quarterback, the question has to be now would now be the time that we start talking about Ty Simpson or another quarterback. To me, it's still a little too rich for that, especially if Gerard McCoy is on the board. If Gerard McCoy is on the board for this football team, I think they take him. I think he would probably, let me just take a peek at my board from who I've watched so far. Yeah, he'd be the best player on my board, and for a personnel department that does a really good job finding players in the draft that can contribute. As long as those medicals check out, and when it comes to guys like him, that'll be the be all end all. If this kid slips on draft day and we're getting towards the 20s and he's still not picked, then that should be a red flag to everybody watching that, hey, maybe the medicals didn't come back the way we thought they did. We don't know that now. It's February. And I think if this kid's on the board, the Rams take him. He helps shore up their secondary. And this is a kid who, if he comes back healthy, he's a number 1 corner in the NFL. Really, really smooth. When you watch Delane on film and you watch McCoy on film, they're very, very similar. They mirror receivers really, really well. McCoy breaks on balls well. He's physical. I liked what I saw from him. It's just a matter of how he does coming back off injury. If that checks, I think he goes to the Rams here.
Jamal McCoy to the Rams. Yeah, we'll see how. We'll see again, right? How he tests at the combine. If he can even test at all, maybe if he can do something by the pro day. Hopefully, Tennessee's pro day. So we can get a better idea of where he stands from coming back from that injury. All right, we've got the Baltimore Ravens here now at 14. Baltimore, right? New head coach Jesse Minter coming in, replacing John Harbaugh. Ravens, coming in this year, I was looking at some stats. It feels like the Ravens really could use some offensive help here. So there's a stat I saw the other day. The Ravens finished 30th in the league in receiving first downs this season, which was only ahead of the Jets and the Browns. So that tells me they really need some receiving help, someone to help out Lamar Jackson. Looking at the board the way it currently stands, we've got Jordan Tyson up here from Arizona State. Another guy, he's further down here. I really like Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. I think he could be a matchup nightmare. They could line him up in so many different ways. I know Baltimore brought in the offensive coordinator from Chicago, Declan Doyle. He's going to be running the full show there, right? He wasn't able to call plays in Chicago because Ben Johnson's got that job. So coming over from Chicago, you've got a guy who's going to want to really put his fingerprints all over this Baltimore offense, helping out Lamar Jackson. I'm going to go, especially because they did re-sign Mark Andrews. He's getting up there in age. Isaiah Likely is a free agent for them too. I don't know what, of course, right? It's early February. We don't know the status of if he's going to resign at this time or not. So you're basically going into this year right now. Baltimore, you got Zay Flowers, number one receiver, yak monster, dude. You've got him. You've got Mark Andrews, as I said, and then you've got I think right, Tom, who's the receiver from Minnesota? I can't think of his name. Name escapes me, but either way, they need another weapon on this offense. I could go Jordan Tyson here, but I'm actually going to go with Kenyon Sadiq.
Rashad Bateman, right?
Rashad Bateman, that's who it was from Minnesota, who was a fantastic player there, but in the NFL, he's kind of just been like an okay player.
I had to Google it as well. We are just full disclosure. We are starting to get to players that I have not fully studied yet. So Sadiq is a player I've watched a little bit. This guy's a freak athlete. Like he is going to be a mismatch nightmare for anybody trying to cover this kid in the NFL. His blocking needs to improve a little bit. And again, Oregon does a lot of not weird stuff, but they run a very specific system. There's a lot of shifting, a lot of moving, a lot of stuff off the edge. They ask their tight ends to do a lot. I think if you can simplify the blocking scheme a little bit for this guy, he'll become a better blocker. But what you're getting from this guy is a really, really good pass catching tight end, a guy who's going to be a threat anywhere on the football field. And I think that helps the Ravens now. I think it might help the Ravens now more than potentially Jordan Tyson could. I will say with the Ravens as well, DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty good year for them last year, and he's a free agent, and he's a guy who 3 months from now, when we're doing another mock, we might talk about him re-signing with the Ravens for one more year, and wide receiver doesn't become as big a threat anymore, and Sadiq makes sense. But this is a good pick here, and I could see this one happening. Again, like when you have guys like this, I think he fills a wide receiver need. He's going to do what wide receivers can do, and he may be the one that you can create a better matchup with. So I like that pick for the Ravens. Okay, so next up we have the Bucs at 15. Some of their needs, at least just looking here, they could use a tight end. They had Kate Otten, who they were happy with. They could use a guard. They could use an end. Maybe some linebacker help, maybe some cornerback help. They have some older guys who are going to be free agents, guys who have contributed to this football team, but maybe their time is done. Whether that's Mike Evans and Levante David, we'll see what happens with those guys. They blitz a lot, the Bucs. They blitz a lot. So the question now becomes, can they, will they look to add an edge? Will they look to add somebody who can get home on his own? Or will they look to blitz a bit more? When I look at the board right now, the way I look at it, I mean, the name that sticks out there is Keldrick Falk. He's a guy that I think is going to be very, not decisive, but he's a guy who there's going to be a lot of different opinions on this kid. Athletically, he's off the charts. He's 6'6", 270. He's got long arms. He looks just different than everybody else. And I think he's like 20 years old. It's kind of insane how athletic he is for his age. I think there's a lot of development that needs to be added, but I think Tampa would be a really, really good spot for him to learn. With that head coach, with the guys they already have there, he could also line up off the edge. You want to line him up as like a stand-up linebacker. He's athletic enough to do that. You want to line him up inside next to a defensive tackle. He's strong enough and physical enough to do that. So when I look at the board and I look at what other edge rushers we could go with here, let me just get it up on my end. There's Falk, there's Mezzanor, there's Howell. There are guys I like. You look at some of their other needs right now, whether it's interior or whether it's linebacker or corner. I think I just feel safest with going with a player like Falk here and taking a gamble on his traits versus what I might know on, an Avion Terrell or even an Anoa, if that's how I pronounce it. I'm probably butchering it, from Penn State. I think I feel safer going with Falk here.
Keldrick Falk, the pick for the Bucks here at 15. Yeah, Keldrick Falk. I think if there's one team that can, and I like your point that you made too. I mean, going to Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, he's been coaching defense for a long time. He's had some great pass rushers in his time in Tampa, his time with the Jets. They had a good pass rush there too. His time with Arizona with Bruce Arians. Yeah, I think Falk going to Tampa Bay, being coached up by Todd Bowles, I think that is a really good spot for him. All right, here's America's team, the New York Jets. Here we are at 16 here, and the second pick in the draft, of course. Their second first round pick in the draft. So Jets at 16. This is the pick that they acquired from the Indianapolis Colts for the Sauce Gardner trade at the deadline this past year. Of course, quarterback is in play here. Ty Simpson is on the board. At this point, if I'm the Jets, I'm still not looking to take Ty at this point. I really have just so many other holes I'm trying to fill right now. Quarterback, we can get somebody, I think, a little later. We've got pick 33, so the Jets, I think, at this point would still pass on a quarterback. And I'll be honest with you, Tom, if the board falls the way it is, I would probably write down Jordan Tyson's name as fast as I could and rush it to Goodell and get that pick in.
Yeah, you're sprinting that one up.
Yeah. So the Jets' wide receiver depth chart outside of Garrett Wilson, there's really not a NFL player on it. We had Josh Reynolds on the team for a little while last year, Alan Lazard. Both of them are free agents anyway. They're both not any good anyway. They're gone from the team. Arian Smith is already looking like a bust. I mean, he was a third-day pick anyway, but really not much from there. Outside of, you've got A.D. Mitchell, who they acquired from the Colts, but, looking at it this way, you go Jordan Tyson here at 16 for whoever the quarterback's going to be next year, and if you could re-sign or even give the franchise tag to Breece Hall in the backfield, you could potentially have Breece in the backfield with Garrett Wilson, Jordan Tyson, A.D. Mitchell, and Isaiah Williams, who's coming off a great year. It could be your wide receiver 4. That's not a bad wide receiver depth chart right there for either a veteran quarterback or even if you have to insert a rookie. So I think if this is the way the board fell, the Jets would race up that card to Goodell in the office for Jordan Tyson. And this would be a fall for him big time. He was being looked at originally as like a top 5 pick earlier in the season. So.
And I think there's a world where he still goes in the top 10. Who knows how some of these teams are going to view some of these wide receivers. Right now, I could see a world where Tyson drops, but so much can change between now and draft night. Yeah, I think if he falls here for the Jets, this is a slam dunk no-brainer for the Jets. So next, the Detroit Lions. You look at them. I really think they're going to target offensive line. They're going to need to replace Taylor Decker. They're going to need to replace Frank Ragnow. They do not have a ton of space, cap space, and they have some big free agents that they're going to look to try to keep in. When I look at who's available on the board right now, I could see them going Caleb Lomu. I could see Avion Terrell. They could use some secondary help, although they have a good they had a pretty good secondary this year, banged up a little bit. The Penn State guard would be interesting, and maybe they look to shift one of their other guards over to center. I don't know how feasible that is. I kind of think they did that a little bit this year, or maybe they moved somebody else to guard. I know they've shuffled players around, but I think at this point they'll go tackle. And for me, it's Caden Proctor over Caleb Lomu, at least for now. I still haven't watched either of these guys in great detail. I think with Proctor, you're drafting him for those physical traits. He's been a kid who's played at Bama for virtually his entire 3 years. He's 6'7", 360 pounds. He's massive. He's really, really powerful. And he moves really well for a guy his size, especially as a pass blocker. So he's not the finished product. There are going to be areas of his game where he needs to improve. But I think for a football team where you look at this football team, we're starting to get to some of these teams now where a number of these teams have good rosters, maybe not from top to bottom, but a number of really, really solid spots. This is a team, the Lions, that if they can shore up their offensive line for next year, they can be back in the contending in the playoff picture.
All right, we got the Minnesota Vikings now at 18. Again, this is a team with questions around the quarterback position. I'm not sure if this regime. Well, it is technically a new regime. They fired the general manager. Kevin O'Connell's still there as the head coach, but I'm not sure if ownership's going to be willing to invest another not really high first round pick, but another first round pick for a quarterback here. Ty Simpson could be in play, but like I said, I don't think that's going to happen here for the Vikings. I think maybe they'll either look towards a free agency or a trade to bring in a veteran quarterback to maybe compete with McCarthy for the job next year. But also with the Vikings here, I'm thinking maybe on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I know they had one of the best pass defenses in the league last year, the Vikings. Very good pass defense. They were actually second in the league in passing yards allowed per game. Harrison Smith is getting up there in age, though. They do have a couple guys who are free agents this upcoming year. So if I'm the Vikings, I'm looking at this point maybe to go with one of the best cornerbacks available here. I see Avian Terrell here, but on my board, he's technically not the top guy here. I like Brandon Cisse from South Carolina here. He's a guy who can line up. He lined up all over the field in South Carolina. He can play the slot. He can play on the outside. And I think Brian Flores is going to find ways to put him in the best position to make plays on the ball. So I'm going to actually go with Brandon Cisse here for the Vikings.
Yeah, interesting prospect. I haven't watched a lot of him yet. I'm really excited to watch him now after you kind of gave that glowing review about him. So I'm excited to see what he can do when I watch him. All right, next up, Carolina at 29. When I look at the Panthers, look at wide receiver. Can they add somebody to potentially match up with Tet? Their defensive line needs some help. And they could use some off-ball linebacker help. When I look at this team right now, and I look at the board, I think Peter Woods would be a really, really good value pick here. I know he's hit or miss to some people at Clemson, but when I watched him or what I've seen of him so far, I think he's an explosive, quick twitch, quick-footed player. He can beat people in those tight areas, and I think he can help provide pressure for this defense next year. So I'm going to go Peter Woods here.
Peter Woods to the Carolina Panthers. Pair him next to Derek Brown. Man, that's a pretty good combo right there. All right, here are your Cowboys again at 20. So the Cowboys with their second pick of the first round. Of course, this is the pick from the Green Bay Packers as part of the Micah Parsons trade. So Tom, we're gonna stick on the defensive side of the ball here. I mean, I don't know how you'd feel. I don't think you can go double corner in the first round. Though maybe you could make a case for it. I'm looking more at the trenches here for you guys. I know you got Quinnen Williams in the mix there. You've got what's the guy's name they got from the Packers?
Kenny Clark.
Kenny Clark.
He might be a cap casualty, but we'll see.
Yeah, so he's up there in age, but you've got a lot of good players here that you can jump out. One guy who's standing out to me right here, though, is C.J. Allen, linebacker from Georgia. Middle of the defense could use some help. I'm not going to go double corner here. I'm going to give you C.J. Allen from Georgia here at this pick.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where Dallas goes. Of course, there's a world where Dallas goes double corner here, but I just don't. I don't see that. As I mentioned before, they drafted Chevelle Revel. last year, and they spent a day 2 pick on him, and they were really, really, really high on him. So I think they want to give him a legit chance to play. So if you go Delane and you have Revel and you still have Deron Bland on a pretty good contract, I just don't see corner here. I could see edge depending on what they think of Cassius Howell or some of these other guys. There is a world where I'm like, hey, like I wouldn't mind Caden McDonald or Carl Banks. Like I like both those guys. It would be ridiculous with the amount of money they have invested in defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And probably something they wouldn't do. So CJ Allen makes sense here. Again, we're getting to guys like Caleb Lomo. I'd want to watch a little bit more because right tackle is a sneaky need for the Cowboys, depending on what they do with Terrence Steele. So I could see a world where they go Lomu, but I think CJ Allen makes sense, especially off the ball. You pair him with DeMarvion Overshone. That could be a pretty good duo at the linebacker position. And I think you've made your defense better after day one with guys you can plug and play, which is what Dallas is probably looking at. So when we look at the Steelers, you see their team needs there for those watching, quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, offensive guard, and defensive tackle. This is a team that traditionally drafts best player available. If it fits a need, awesome. I like Avion Terrell. I like the guard from Penn State. I think it's between those two. And if I had to take one for the Steelers, I would go with Vega. I can't pronounce the last name. I'd go with the guard from Penn State. I will get that pronunciation down by draft night, I promise. I think this just feels like a Steeler pick. I think you can get that. They'll figure the quarterback situation out in free agency. You take the guard, you shore up your interior. I think he'll be the best player available. I think he could be a top 15 player in this draft. And if you can get him at 21, I think Steeler fans, they may not be wowed by it. I'm sure they're thinking cornerback. Can we add KC Concepcion? Can we add Denzel Boston? We never add skill guys. I still think this guard is a really, really good football player.
All right, Los Angeles Chargers here at 22. So let's talk about their needs, right? So obviously we all saw the playoff game against New England. Justin Herbert had absolutely no time to throw, of course, right? Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, they were injured, but there was just absolutely nothing on that offensive line that was stopping a very good Patriot pass defense coming through there. They bring in Mike McDaniel as their offensive coordinator, which I think is a great landing spot for him. I think, the Chargers offense, I think, will be, if not, it will be up there towards one of the best in the league next year. I wouldn't be surprised if after next year, Mike McDaniel's right back on the head coaching circuit as one of the best candidates available for a job in 2027. So right away, we're looking here the way the board fell. If I'm the Chargers, I'm pretty mad about that Steeler pick right there for that guard from Penn State, because that may have been what the pick would have been. You've got Avian Terrell here. Their defense was okay this past year, the Chargers. When they had Minter as the DC, who's now, right, he's gone. He's the head coach of Baltimore now. I think in the way that the board is falling here, though, if I can't get, I don't know if there's really, you got Caleb Lomu here again. I haven't seen much of him this year. So, and the Chargers really don't need a tackle. They have their tackles in place who they want to roll with. I'm thinking maybe you can boost up the trenches here. And I think what I'm going to do in this spot, if I'm the Chargers, I'm gonna go with Caleb Banks here, the defensive tackle from Florida, to give them some other pressure that they can force on the inside here to help out the pass rush.
This kid's going to be a popular name that you're going to hear around the draft. I mean, physically, he is unbelievable.
He's a big guy.
He's huge, and he moves really, really well for his size. So yeah, this one doesn't shock me. I think you're right. I think if the guard is there, they run that card up there. But I think for what it looks like right now, I think this pick makes sense. So now we have the Eagles, and the Eagles are in a very interesting position. Probably underachieved from what they were hoping for this year. There are a number of question marks from the quarterback to the coach to, are they going to keep A.J. Brown? If they trade A.J. Brown, this could become a sneaky spot for a wide receiver. Howie Roseman is also a very aggressive general manager and going out and getting guys they want. When we look at the team needs, maybe an edge, maybe a tight end. None of those really flying off the board for me right now. Offensive guard, tackle, safety. I think tackle's a very, very interesting position. Their offensive line has been really good for years now, right? Mailaga, Dickerson, Jurgens. Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson's been banged up a lot. There's a lot of questions about what his future even looks like with this football team. This is another team that traditionally drafts best player available, even if the need isn't glaring. I think if Caleb Lomo is here, the Eagles take him. I think he's the best player on the board. I think by this point, he would I think there's a world where he goes between 15 and 20. I think if he gets there at 23, I could see the Eagles taking him. Again, I think I'm making this pick with the assumption that I think Lane Johnson may be retiring. We'll wait and we'll see what his future looks like down the board. I don't know if he's said anything yet. But if he's back, then I could see Avion Terrell. If there's a world where he retires, I think Lomu could be a pick.
Yeah, Lane Johnson, one of the top tackles in the past decade in the league. I mean, he's been a stud since day one, since he arrived in Philadelphia. But yeah, a lot of injuries the past couple of years. That I saw a report that he might retire. I saw Landon Dickerson actually was thinking about retiring too. I was like, well, he's a younger guy, but I guess offensive line in this league, man, it's it's a war every week. So no surprise if some guys are having those thoughts as they enter the offseason. But yeah, I agree. I think the Eagles, their offensive line, man, that's always been a strength over the years, and why not try to keep keep it a strength by drafting a guy like Lomu who
I also do wonder when you look at some of these tackles. Lomu's one of the guys that, and again, I haven't watched him a ton yet, so I'm curious if my opinion changes, but I do think he may be able to kick inside the guard. So maybe you draft him and you play him inside at guard, whether it's at right guard, if Dickerson retires, maybe you play him at left guard for a little bit, and then, depending on what happens with Lane Johnson, then you can make your decision from there in the future. I just think if you can add a player of his caliber and get him in your team now, you'll find a use for him next year, and then you can figure out whether it's guard or tackle later.
All right, we get the Cleveland Browns now, pick number 24. So this is the Browns' second first-round pick. This was the pick that they acquired from Jacksonville as part of the Travis Hunter trade from the previous year's draft. So when we're looking for Cleveland here, we still see our top needs. We drafted Spencer Fanu earlier at pick number 6. So we have an offensive tackle here. Quarterback, of course, is in question. Ty Simpson is on the board right here, staring right at the Cleveland Browns. As I said earlier, though, I just feel like the Browns are going to let it play out this year between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they think Shedeur could possibly be their quarterback in the future. I don't think Todd Monken's going to want to go quarterback here, or Andrew Berry are going to want to go quarterback here with this pick. However, they still need to build on the offense, so they need to get a weapon for Watson or Sanders. So we have some receivers on the board here. Casey Concepcion, who I really like from Texas A&M, is staring us in the face right here. He's going to be my pick. He was a big part of the reason Texas A&M's offense was so damn good last year. So Casey Concepcion, going to be the pick. You can play him right next to Jerry Jeudy. They're also going to need weapons too. There was a report recently. Well, actually, it wasn't a report. David Njoku said it himself. He's leaving Cleveland after this year, so they're going to need another weapon as part of that passing game. So Concepcion will step in and be that weapon to help out the Browns.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of what you're looking for in your wide receiver. Concepcion and Boston are very different wide receivers, and it's going to come down to what you're looking for in that offense. I will say for teams looking for quarterbacks, and you'll probably agree with this being a Jet fan, I think next year's draft is going to be looming large in a lot of these people's minds, right? Yeah, sure. Right now, a lot of these kids who are coming back next year, whether it's Arch Manning or Julian Sayin or Lenoris Sellers or whoever you like for next year's draft, you may not love them right now, but there was a world where Joe Burrow showed up at LSU and nobody really thought much of anything with him. So a year of development can be huge for some of these quarterbacks, and it just feels like the crop is going to be, there's going to be more quarterbacks next year. So I think teams like the Browns and the Jets, teams that are going to have multiple first-round picks in the next couple years, I think they're going to try to hang on to that ammo, add good football players, and then, make their decision on what they want to do with the quarterback next year, where there might be 4 or 5 choices versus this year, where now we're starting to get into, do you like Ty Simpson enough, or do you like Garrett Nussmeier enough? But So yeah, I think the Browns run it back with Shador and Gabriel. Maybe they add a veteran quarterback. Maybe they play Deshaun Watson, as crazy as that sounds. But I don't, unless Ty Simpson blows somebody away, and we're getting a Ty Simpson range. I think he goes in this range. I actually think he'll be drafted in the first round here. We'll see. I just don't think it's to the Browns there. So next we have the Bears. Unbelievable season for this football team. I think when you look at this team and what their needs are, they need interior defensive line help. They could use a safety. They could use a linebacker. They could use some edge help. And maybe an offensive tackle. When I look at this team, I look at Caden McDonald from Ohio State. I really, really like him. Haven't watched him particularly closely yet, but I've watched the same Ohio State games 4 or 5 times because of the other guys on the defense. I think this kid is really good. I think there's a chance that after I watch him, I have him pretty high on my board. So I think if he's there for the Bears, they'll take this pick and they'll be very, very happy. Keep the Midwest guy in Chicago, and he can come in and contribute from day one for this football team.
All right, we got the Buffalo Bills here at 26. So Buffalo Bills, I'll just say it. I think this roster is overrated. Their offense has really been all Josh Allen. Their offensive line is pretty good. But Josh Allen, without really much to work with receiver-wise, outside of Khalil Shakir, there's really not much there. I mean, I know they got Dalton Kincaid. They got guys like Dawson Knox, who's an okay player. But, getting rid of Sean McDermott, going for Joe Brady, that just didn't really make sense to me this year. Why Brandon Beane got to keep his job, I thought was a complete joke. But looking at the way this roster is built right now, the Bills had a great pass defense this year. Their secondary was very, very good. One of the best secondaries in the league. What killed Buffalo was that they couldn't stop the run this year. They were not good at all against the run. I'm not going to try to look for an interior guy at this point. Wide receiver, though, continues to be a big need with this team. And when I look at the current board right now, I see Denzel Boston, the wide receiver from Washington. He's got really good size, really fast. Look, I'm really looking forward to see how he runs at the combine, actually. So I'm going to give Denzel Boston here, who I think could develop into the number 1 receiver that Buffalo was hoping Keon Coleman was going to be. So let's go with Denzel Boston here, wide receiver from Washington, to give Josh Allen a potential big play threat.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think he'd go in there and do his role and kind of fit in, really well quite quickly. For this football team. So next up are the Niners. Wide receiver, edge, offensive tackle, offensive guard, safety. This team kind of feels like it has more holes than people are talking about right now. If Avion Terrell is here, I just don't see a world where the Niners pass him up. If he goes, I think edge could be a spot that they look here. Akeem Mesidor probably being the guy that they would take, but I just feel like Avion Terrell is going to be a guy who goes, between 15 and 23, 24-ish range. And if he's here for the Niners, I just think they take him and they help solidify themselves at safety or at corner. Excuse me.
So we got the Texans here at 28. One of the best rosters in the league. This defense was phenomenal this past season, one of the best in the league. And of course, their downfall came with how poorly C.J. Stroud was in the playoffs this year. The defense was able to get the job done against Pittsburgh in the wild card round, but against New England in the divisional, it didn't get done. So I think Houston, looking at their needs, right, offensive line, offensive tackle, guard. We're also showing here defensive tackle, running back, and linebacker. I think at this point, if you're Houston, you're right, there's a lot of questions about CJ Stroud's future, if they're going to look to extend him or not. I think what Houston needs to do here is try to find a way to make him more confident on the field, make him more comfortable. And that's really going to start with the offensive line. I'm looking around here, and I'll be honest, at this point, I haven't done really much work on any of these guys. I see 2 offensive tackles here, one from Georgia, one from Arizona State. I don't know. No one's really jumped. I don't know if there's a guard in here really worth take. Oh, okay. Jace Basantis from Texas A&M is here. I know he's 40th here on the board here from PFSN, but I've seen some mocks where he could be a first round talent. So I think what I'm going to do here, You might think, maybe some folks might think this is a reach, but at this point, Houston, we're trying to build our offensive line more comfortably around C.J. Stroud. I'm going to go with Chase Basantis here from Texas A&M.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see them going line here. I could see them going interior defensive tackle as well, depending on who's on the board. Um, I think if Caden McDonald is there, he might be a guy that piques their interest. So yeah, I could see that. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I think the Rams look quarterback here, and I think they go Ty Simpson. I think this is a potential low risk, high reward. You get to go play for Sean McVay, learn with Sean McVay, learn behind Matt Stafford. Can you ask for a better situation for a quarterback? They might have more pressing needs, sure, but I look at this football team and go, all right, we can get our guy now. We can get him on that 50-year extension if we need to. If Stafford wants to play another year, 2 years, we're in good shape, and hopefully we can get a good look at Simpson over the next 3, maybe 4 years. You love him, you can pick up that 50-year option and work out on a deal. You don't like him, he was a back end of the first round pick. I could see the Rams making this move here.
Yeah, I agree. Fantastic spot for him. Let's not forget, Ty Simpson, only 1 year of starting experience in college football. So the fact that he can just go to a team where he can sit back, learn, gets to be in the same quarterback room as a guy like Matthew Stafford, it's going to be so beneficial to his growth and development. And we'll see. Maybe over time, like if the board breaks this way, Ty Simpson ends up as a Ram. Maybe he's their starting quarterback within the next 2 years. We'll see what happens.
I think that point you make about him not starting a ton of games is you are 100% correct. That's why this spot is such a good spot for Ty Simpson. I mean, I think the three best coaches you can learn under in terms of quarterback in this league, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Kevin O'Connell. And for this kid who, at the beginning of the year showed real promise and then struggled, in the second half of this football season. I think for him to then be able to go and learn from not just Sean McVay, but I think it would be so valuable to learn from Matthew Stafford as well. I think it would be huge for them.
So we get the Denver Broncos here at number 30. All right, so one of the best defenses in the league last year. They could probably improve their run defense. It wasn't the best last year. I don't know if you could really use this pick to do that, though. What I like to do is I'd like to take a look at the offense and see maybe there's another weapon that we can give Bo Nix coming back from his injury for next year. The way the board's falling right here, let's see, what do we have at receiver? Chris Bell is here. If I recall, Tom, didn't Chris Bell get hurt this year too at Louisville?
That's a good question. I'll need to check that.
I believe he got hurt this year, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he tore his ACL late in the 2025 season. So we don't even know what his status is going to be. Really liked him, though. He was a really big play weapon. You got Elijah Surratt here from Indiana. Omar Cooper, another guy from Indiana. I feel like it's just a little too late, though, for some of these guys. So I'm going to look back to the defense. I mentioned Lee Hunter earlier in the draft. He's staring us in the face here as a defensive tackle from Texas Tech. Same defense where David Bailey came from. Texas Tech, as we mentioned earlier, was one of the best defenses in the country this year. And I think Lee Hunter in the middle of this defense here, the way this board's fallen, would be a fantastic pick and would really be able to encapsulate that entire defensive line as a major threat for the Denver pass rush.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick for them there. I think Denver kind of has the luxury to go where they want, and I think this could be a team that could be like a sneaky George Pickens spot. There's been talk about Cortland Sutton. What's going to happen with him? I think he sent out like a cryptic message the other day, basically being like, my time, you got to love these guys with social media. Like, my time is done in Denver or something like that. So I could see them maybe looking to flip this pick for George Pickens if a team's going to give up a 1. But if not, I could see them going Lee Hunter. For the Pats here, I'm taking Akeem Mesidor off the edge. I think if this kid's here at 31, the Pats would be thrilled. There are times at the beginning of the year when you watch this kid play that he stands out more than Bain on film. I think Notre Dame, you might be able to attest to this watching that game. He was unbelievable against Notre Dame this year. Didn't hold up super well all year long and doesn't have that same type of explosiveness that maybe the top end pass rushers do. But this guy's really powerful, gets off the ball well. When he gets off and times the snap well, he's really, really good. And I just think he adds to a New England defense, especially when there's I mean, maybe Monroe Fielding. I've heard good things about him. Maybe after I watch him, he'd be the pick here to help with that offensive line. But I think they're looking for edge help, and I think they're looking for somebody who can, help take that defense to another level, and he can help do that.
Yeah, Keem Messidor. I mean, when Notre Dame played Miami this year, the Miami front was just overwhelming the Notre Dame offensive line. Notre Dame had a good offensive line this year, but that's how good the Miami front was with Messidor and Bain and all those guys in the middle. They just completely overwhelmed Notre Dame on that opening night game. We've reached the final pick in our mock draft here, number 32, the Super Bowl champs, the Seattle Seahawks here. Again, it's kind of a similar spot here to the Broncos and Patriots, kind of like a luxury pick here. You can kind of just, do what you need here. I mean, right now, our needs are looking like corner, looks like some offensive line, edge. I mean, I see TJ Parker here from Clemson. You could just, continue to load up on edge pass rush here if you're the Seattle Seahawks. Just add another weapon to your arsenal right here. AJ Holchey from safety from LSU, they really don't need anything on the back end. Offensive line, they're kind of even set at the tackles too at this point. I mean, I can't tell you anything about these corners, Keith Abney or Colton Hood. I haven't done much research at this point in February. Well, you got Anthony Hillier here too. He was pretty good linebacker from Texas. I think at this point here, if I'm Seattle, dude, I'm loading up on that pass rush still. I'm going with TJ Parker here to close us out in the first round. And here are our full results for the mock draft. Let's see. How many Ohio State guys did we have go here, Tom? I see Reese.
4?
I see Tate. Did we have 4? I see Downs.
5.
Styles. Who am I missing?
Should be 4 on defense and 1 on offense, right?
Offense. 5, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so five Ohio State guys. Yeah, Katie McDonald at the end there. Five Ohio State guys go in the first round. So, so this was our first mock draft. Let us know what you guys think. Comment, rate, review. I'll post the video up on YouTube. I'll also post the video up on our website at loftsportus.com. Let us know what you think. And of course, this is just the first mock draft Tom and I will run through. We're also going to do another one sometime in March. And then I think we'll do another one maybe a day or two right before the draft. So, Tom, any overall thoughts on any of this as you look over the full results here?
No, this is just my favorite time of the year. Like I was the type of dork that I loved playing Madden because I love team building. It wasn't necessarily about playing the games in Madden. And this is where you build football teams. This is where teams like the Seahawks and the Patriots elevated themselves to Super Bowl contenders, and in the Seahawks case, Super Bowl champions last year. So we got a fun couple weeks coming up. The draft, free agency. I think we're going to see some trades, right? Like I think if the NFL trade deadline showed us anything, that there's good players that can be had, and teams are willing to give up some of these players. Now it's just a matter of, are you willing to give up what you can to get premier talent? And I think some teams, the Seahawks showed you it this year. The Eagles showed you it last year. You can get these guys and they can be game changers. So I'm expecting to see some trades now between now and the draft as well.
Yeah, usually around the scouting combine, that's when everybody gets together, shows up. That's when a lot of conversations happen. They say a lot of free agent signings even happen during the combine.
Is the combine next week?
I think it's the week after. I want to say that. So let's see. Today's the 13th, so not next week. I think it's the week. I think it's the last week in February, but I'd have to double check that.
All right, cool.
Yep. Well, thanks for chilling with us today, folks. The Lofts Sports Podcast can be found wherever you consume your podcasts. Check out our website at loftsportus.com. The past few days, we're keeping the draft reports coming, doing a lot of great work on writing up some of these scouting reports. Check out our website, drop a comment and a rating, give us some feedback on some of our articles. Don't forget to follow Loft Sports on X, YouTube, and TikTok. On X, YouTube, and TikTok, we are under at Loft Sports USA. Tom, thanks a lot. Appreciate it, my brother. Everybody, see y'all later. We're signing off for the night.